Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. The Polish citizen who spent 2 months in a vegetative state in a hospital in Plymouth has died. We've been covering this story for several days. Plymouth University Hospital, at the request of his family living in the United Kingdom, obtained court approval to disconnect the patient's life support equipment. The rest of his family in Poland had clamoured for life support. Polish public opinion is shocked by the apparently soulless condemnation to death by starvation of the man. Here's what Polish politicians had to say on the issue. Disconnection from life support apparatus means letting natural processes take place, and that this man finally dies. Some say that it is like in Auschwitz, starving a person on death row. Not really, not. Because it's artificial support. If it's natural, let's put food next to the bed for him. The government's actions to save the Pole's life were also criticised by Liberal politician, former comedian and Catholic preacher Szymon Hołownia, as well as by the chairman of the Civic Platform Party, Boris Budka. Is it good that this issue has become the subject of political discussions? The Polish political class lacked the necessary delicacy in this matter, because all the time it is a matter of a specific man and his specific family, in which there was a dispute about this man's life. The issue has been included too much in party political dispute between key political formations. What do these disputes say about the Polish political scene? This is an issue that shows that in Polish society, and thus on the political scene, we have a clear ideological rupture, and clearly different parties are moving in different directions, that there are fewer and fewer common issues, that there are less and less obvious and certain matters on the Polish political scene. Just as life seemed to be certain and obvious matter, so this case shows that it is no longer such a matter. From an ethical point of view, life should always be fought for. As humanity, we should all care for each individual, whether unborn or born. We have an example of diabolical euthanasia, that is, the murder of an elderly person or a person with a disability, just because that person is disabled. Unfortunately, the fight for the life of this Pole is over. According to the decision of a British court, he has been cut off from water and food for 12 days. Let's take a look at the latest Health Ministry data on the coronavirus pandemic in Poland. 4,604 new infections were detected, as well as 264 deaths, of which 225 people had comorbidities. The highest number of infections were detected in the Mazowieckie, Kujawsko-Pomorskie and Wielkopolskie voivodeships. The lowest number was in Opole. Over 42,500 tests were performed during the day. Polish political parties are strongly divided on almost every issue, as is the case with the coronavirus pandemic. The government is trying to build an agreement, and today, in the office of Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, there was a meeting with representatives of all parliamentary groups. The most important difference of opinion appeared on the topic of easing sanitary restrictions. The main opposition party, Civic Coalition, believes that the government is trying to withdraw from the earlier declarations and wants to share with the opposition the responsibility for the chaos in the vaccination system. In addition, they demand the decentralisation of the registrations were conducted in POZ clinics. It is most important to use the knowledge of doctors who know their patients. Following the meeting, Michał Dworczyk said that the problem is in the number of vaccines available. He added that political circles demand that the government should start talks on obtaining vaccines from outside the European Union, violating the earlier EU-wide agreement. Thanks to this system, we can perform many millions of vaccinations per month. Today, unfortunately, each vaccination point can only receive 30 doses per week because there is a limited access to vaccines. Dworczyk believes that all parliamentary clubs, apart from the Confederation, aim at effectively vaccinating as many people as possible. He pointed at the suggestion of administering vaccines to oncology patients at the stage when there will be more of them. So far, over 776,000 people have been vaccinated in Poland. Only in the last 24 hours, nearly 70,000 more vaccinations were performed. And now we follow up on the story of the Grot rifle, sharply criticised by the most popular online portal, onet.pl, owned by Swiss-German group Ringer Axel Springer. After the publication, the authors stood by their statements, while the equipment producer and the Polish army say the journalist's claims are unfounded. Onet.pl portal. Some are dangerous to the users. Telewizja Republika PL reacted to Mr. Moschner's report. tvrepublika.pl. The Grot rifle passed all the required qualification tests, responded the Territorial Defence Forces Command. The report itself was not published on a specialised WOT portal and contains many errors. The pictures show the rifle from the pre-production phase. It was made before we introduced mass production. The press spokesman of the Territorial Defence Forces Command responds to the suggestion that the rifle poses a threat. I wanted to confirm their thesis that Grot poses a threat to soldiers. But it threatens the enemy soldiers, because it is a very good rifle with great potential, which we have been developing for 3 years. The aforementioned disadvantages concerned the per thousand of units produced. Defects concern only 78 units out of 40,000 guns produced, contrary to the alleged report. This perspective is quite contrary to the press report. National Defence Minister Mariusz Błaszczak emphasised that the rifle passed all the necessary tests. No weapon is perfect, including this one, but it is also a Polish weapon, a proven weapon, and it is not unreliable. They have been tested. They are in the equipment of the Polish army. There are voices that the attack may have a second basis. This attack may be an attack sponsored by lobbyists who believe that the Polish product should be negatively stigmatized to encourage buying from another source. Currently, Ukraine is negotiating with several companies for the purchase of weapons. The same day the article appears, the negotiations are conducted in Ukraine. The MSBS Grot rifle has already undergone several modernizations and is constantly being improved. The largest user is a territorial defence force. The question arises, who cares about discrediting the Polish defence industry? If you happen to visit Warsaw, you will certainly go to the Castle Square to admire the Royal Castle. But remember, you will not be looking at the original building. At the end of the Warsaw Uprising in 1944, the Germans mined the monument and blew it up in an attempt to erase all memory of Poland. Half a century ago, Poles began the rebuilding. What you see today is a reconstruction. The former residence of the Kings of Poland and the seat of the same, and one of the symbols of the Polish state. That is the Royal Castle in Warsaw. Today, it celebrated the 50th anniversary of the commencement of reconstruction work after the destruction caused by World War II. That is, referring to the first historic meeting of the Civic Committee for the reconstruction of the Royal Castle. On September the 17th, not only was the main damage done in 1939, but also on September the 17th, many years later, the first brick was laid. These were the times of this reconstruction, when on the one hand the communist authorities tried to fulfill their propaganda needs, and on the other hand the Polish nation strongly remembered its identity and its values. September the 17th, 1939. It is on this day at 11:15 a.m. that the Germans bombarded the capital, including the Royal Castle. In 1944, the castle was burned up by the German army and almost completely destroyed. Although post-war reconstruction was delayed for a long time during the communist period, it was finally undertaken in 1971. The scale of human sacrifice is illustrated by the fact that until 1980, only social contributions were used. It was the Polish nation that rebuilt the castle. The huge piggy bank we placed in the outer courtyard is a reminder of the great social mobilization action. It was there that Warsavians and all Poles were throwing money. As part of the Jubilee, the Royal Castle in Warsaw intends to complete the investment programme for the castle complex and enrich the collection of works of art, such as, for example, the masterpieces of the Vatican, but not only those. The Royal Castle in Warsaw is a keystone of Polish identity. It is a symbol of Polish statehood. The Jubilee will last until 2024. Its aim is, on the one hand, to show a living museum, but on the other hand, it is a sign of the greatness of the state and a symbol of the duration of Polish history and Polish tradition. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business, and more of our programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.